Well, my name is Neasloss. I work as the stewardship director for Clemty. I remember as a kid, in the bay, our bay used to be plugged full of fish. And I remember if you threw a rock in the water, the salmon would bubble all the way to one side of the bay and bubble all the way back. You just don't see that anymore. It's very scary. I mean, in my lifetime, I've watched some rivers, completely full and plugged full of fish to now having zero fish. I was hired in 2011 and my job was to help build the stewardship department. A lot of it we actually developed from scratch, and so we started out with 2 of us, and now at our height we probably have about 30 people now that work in stewardship, and our job is essentially to implement the land use plans and marine use plans that were developed by the community. You know, as a Kitasoo I think we've always been an ocean-going people, especially smaller communities, being very remote or very dependent on the ocean for food. Salmon, it means a lot. I think it's obviously a keystone species. It's very important for our community for food. It's very important to the health of the ecosystem. It's very important for our economics. I would say historically some of our rivers, our larger rivers, used to host about 80,000 fish. Now we're down to about 4,000 or 5,000 in some of those systems. So we're trying to do a bunch of research. We're trying to look at what are having the biggest impacts on salmon and how do we make some changes as soon as we can. Our governance structures were built around stewardship and taking care of those resources. We want to make sure we do things differently. We want to make sure that we're bringing sound science to the table. We want to make sure that we have a strong enforcement arm. We want to make sure that our watchmen have the proper authority to implement, our laws or rules. We want to try and indigenize some of these policies. I think we've been here for thousands of years. I think we have a lot of information we can share. There's ways that we can do it better. There's ways that we've been doing it better at the community level. It's now just starting to shift. It's really only been within the last few years that people are starting to listen and pay attention to this. And so we're still in the infant stages of still trying to implement and get to where we want to go, but I think we're moving in the right direction. What we're doing in general is pretty exciting. I mean, I remember what life was like in the 90s, and we were in the high 80 unemployment rate, and now we've just really started to focus on building a conservation-based economy. I think that's super exciting. 20 years ago, there was a lot of people that didn't have a lot of faith in developing things like tourism. It was a new concept, a new industry. You didn't know much about it, but we've focused on building it and slowly building it and integrating, make sure the community's involved. And that's done fairly well, and stewardship as well. I mean, who thought 20 years ago that you could make a living to take care of your territory, which is pretty cool.